Last week in Ontario, the O.P.P held Operation Safe Trucking, Blitz, on distracted driving by truck drivers. Now, they announced this Blitz beforehand, and they even announced beforehand that not only would they be using O.P.P cruisers and unmarked vehicles, they used airplanes and they used tractor units belonging to the O.P.P with O.P.P decals right on the doors of the trucks. So there's no mistaking if the truck beside you said O.P.P on the door who it was. According to their report, they stopped 3,500 trucks. Now the headlines read, "Almost 2,000 charged in Ontario Trucking Blitz." Well, that's quite a few, and it was only a few days long. It wasn't even a full week. Well, you get a little farther down the article and it says 1,836 were actually charged. Well, you go, well, that's not 2,000, that's 1,836. What happened to the other 164? When you look at these exaggerated numbers, the media loves to make truckers look like the bad guys. And here's a perfect example of that. The media blowing these numbers up out of proportion when it wasn't truly the case. They charged 223 truck drivers with distracted driving, 336 drivers for speeding, 111 drivers for following too close, 185 drivers for defective equipment, another 185 drivers for mystery offenses that they failed to name and specify, and then 537 drivers for improper documentation, like logbooks not filled out or not having their safety certificate or their ownership or the insurance. So 537, and you think, wait a minute, that doesn't add up. And you're right, it doesn't. They've come across a truck driver with a calculator, and the calculator says that's only 1,577 total charged. What happened to the other 259? The incident of distracted driving, what they were looking for, only 15.5% of the trucks that were stopped out of that 3,500 were actually guilty of distracted driving. Now, 15.5% is higher than you'd like to see it, but it certainly wasn't a vast majority of the drivers anyway. So that's a figure to take heart in. But they finished their Blitz, and the O.P.P admitted at the end of the Blitz that the vast majority of truck drivers were driving safely, and that was nice to hear. It was kind of unusual to me that they warned people about these blitzes beforehand because, of course, everyone's looking for attention from the police, especially the truck drivers, after they announced this Blitz. But here's where this story gets interesting. A number of Ontario truck drivers were reporting back and forth and talking on Facebook about incidents of being cut off by cruisers. And what was happening was, basically, a cruiser would cut in front of a tractor unit and then slam on the brakes to see if the driver was paying attention, the truck driver was paying attention, or to see if he was guilty of distracted driving. I guess their theory was that if he hits the back of the cruiser, he must not have been paying attention. What an incredibly stupid tactic. And you can hardly believe that the O.P.P would deliberately make a move like this and risk the truck jackknifing just to see if the driver was paying attention. Now, we all know that the vast majority of cops are safe guys, good guys, but we also know in every group there's got to be a few loose cannons. And obviously, there are a few loose cannons that hadn't thought this through in the O.P.P and not realized that they could cause a jackknife, they could cause a tractor to hit the back end of the cruiser, and you know who'd be at fault there. They could even have gotten themselves killed if the truck hadn't stopped in time and run right over top of them. So you've just got to say at this point, hey Vince, and Vince Hawks is the O.P.P commissioner here. You've just got to say, hey Vince, you better talk to a few of your boys because I've never heard of a more unsafe practice in my life. In fact, under the Highway Traffic Act, that's dangerous driving. Now, I know that the O.P.P are exempt from being charged in most cases under the Highway Traffic Act, but that's a practice that could get somebody killed, and it would probably be one of the officers. So I think in the commissioner's best interest, he maybe ought to find out which few of his guys were trying this tactic, and dissuade them from ever doing it again. Because that's an incredibly dangerous practice. You can hardly believe that the police would be guilty of this, but it happened too often to be coincidence. This all started getting back to me when a close friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, you wouldn't believe what's happening out here, and it just happened to me." And he said, "I thought at first it was just, you know, a bad move because he got called to a call and had to make a U-turn or something like that." But no, that wasn't the case. They slammed on the brakes in front of him, watched him, and then took off. Later that day, he became aware on Facebook of other guys saying the same bloody thing was happening to them. And they all put two and two together and went, there's the results from the distracted driving blitz here in Ontario. You guys all survived it. Carry on, and I will see you on the back home.